Hello, my astrology friends. This is Lada from astrolada.com with a quick update what Saturn going retrograde for the first time in 28 years or 27 years, 28, something like that, in Pisces will do. Every time Saturn goes retrograde, which is once every year, but for the first time it's in Pisces since almost 30 years, for the month, almost the whole month when Saturn is going retrograde, some of the most important events happen connected to Saturn. Because when Saturn is about to go retrograde, it stops. So almost the whole June, it stays on the 7th degree of Pisces, which means everyone who has the mutable signs, Pisces, Virgo 7 degrees, Gemini, or Sagittarius, around, I would say, even from 3 degrees till 10 degrees to get the whole orb of Saturn. We'll feel it very strongly. Any angle there, any house cusp, any planet, this can be life-changing. This can make one of the most memorable moments regarding that planet, and we'll speak about what it means if Saturn is going retrograde, affecting any personal planet. I've done the houses already in my June 2023 videos that are both on my channels Astrolada and Lada Duncheva on YouTube if you want to watch them. So if you're Gemini, you can hear how Saturn will affect you from a house. If you're Virgo rising, or if you're Libra, whatever sign you are, listen to the sign of your ascendant or your sun sign if you want from my June 2023 videos to hear how Saturn will affect you in the house that is going to be from your ascendant. Here, today we'll speak how Saturn will affect us collectively, how it will affect the world when it's going retrograde in Pisces, and how it will affect those of us with specific degrees and planets in those areas, what to expect, because I didn't speak about them. But let's see collectively. So very important events happen when Saturn is stationary and turning around. Saturn becomes retrograde on 17th, 18th, so almost like 10 days before and 10 days after. So already from even before the middle of the month of June, you're going to start feeling it, or the important events will start happening in your life in regards to that house or in regards to what Saturn symbolizes. But collectively, Pisces, what it means is, and Saturn will be moving retrograde starting from the middle of June till the beginning of November, till the 4th of November. And it will be passing those first 10 degrees of mutable signs in Pisces, which means, again, anyone who is Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, or Virgo, the first 10 degrees, which means they're born in the month, if it's your sun. If you're Gemini, you're born in May. If you're Virgo, you're born in August. If you're Sagittarius, you're born in November. And if you're Pisces, you're the February born Pisces. That will be most affected by the Saturn retrograde. But what does it mean for the whole world? Well, I made a very in-depth video about Saturn in Pisces in my 2023 astrology video. I'll put a link for it below. It gives a lot of details. I'm not going to repeat myself, but you're going to start seeing some of the things that I talk in this video very palpably in the world around. But first, on a personal level, Pisces represents mistakes. Pisces represents lies, mistakes, something that we've hidden, that we've done wrong, or that someone else has hidden or done wrong. And when Saturn starts going retrograde, it's like revising of those mistakes. Mistakes that we've covered up under the carpet come to haunt us like a ghost, like Pisces. So we can never, they say, like, God sees everything. And there is always a time when the consequences come back to you. Well, this never matters more like when Saturn is in Pisces, the last sign, the sign of completing something, retribution, because when Saturn enters Aries in 2.5 years from now, it will be a brand new beginning for everyone. Aries is the first sign collectively. So there is a time when we have to pay for the mistakes we've done. Sometimes we do the mistakes or something wrong on purpose, and we're going to start seeing consequences for that. But even if it's not on purpose, even if it's due to negligence or ignorance, not knowing what it is, unfortunately, spiritual laws or spiritual forces don't, of course, don't discriminate. So people, if you drink a bottle of poison, you're going to get poisoned, even if you didn't know it, or even if you did it on purpose. So unfortunately, sometimes the consequences of our actions can come up which because we did something out of ignorance, out of negligence as well. So we're going to see that. Pisces on the law of vibration is lying, deceptions, illusions. They'll be bursting now. This whole June, you're going to feel this trend of a lot of personal or collective illusions, things that they try to hide, malpractices, lies that were done over the past 27 years even will come to the surface. You'll see a lot of, it might be corporations, it might be people in power, or it might be on the personal level, people in your life or yourself that are really starting to see the results of years long, or even something back to 30 years, or even especially the last 3 years. We saw many institutions, corporations, which whatever Saturn represents, do a lot of very unsavory things that will come back to bite them now, or they'll see the consequences of those activities. If you want to hear more in depth what I talk about, I can repeat it very quickly, but watch that video from that I did in 2022 at the end about Saturn in Pisces, because it's valid for the next 3 years. But Pisces is basically seeing the results, Saturn going retrograde there for the next 4 months, especially on the period when it's turning around, and then around again October, November, when it's turning in the other direction, that you see the most important events. But for the next 4 months, so June, July, August, September, October, so 4 months and a half, a lot of us will be seeing the results, which is the positive side of it. If you've been doing hard work, that's the positive side. If you've been working hard on something, if you've been really trying to improve yourself morally, introduce better habits, or working on something, when Saturn starts going retrograde, you can start already seeing the results of those efforts as well. You can start seeing the impact. But as I said, on the law of vibration, Pisces are all deceptions, illusions. If you've been lying to yourself or to others, neglecting, doing malpractices, very big danger there to be careful. And so a crisis might escalate as well, which means when Saturn starts going retrograde in the world in regards to immigration, Pisces rules immigrants, refugees. And you see already it's escalating. But when Saturn goes retrograde, this cannot be hidden anymore. The results are it's too palpable, it's too real. When Saturn is retrograde, it's 2 times much closer to Earth than normal, because the Earth is between Saturn and the Sun, not on the other side of the Sun. So the Earth and Saturn are almost twice as close as normal, and Saturn is super bright in the sky, which means Saturn becomes more powerful, stronger than when it's moving direct. And what is Saturn? Saturn is consequences. Saturn is results of your actions. Saturn is judgment, and might be rewards if you've done well. If not, it's the consequences of your actions. So it's especially if there have been any malpractices or or on purpose mistakes in regards to refugees, in regards to services that deal with people that are, and you see we have a crisis already in Europe and in the States with refugees. It's like they live, they put in hotels. It's over, over the next 4 to 5 months while Saturn is retrograde. Maybe they'll stop being funded, or something will happen that this crisis will escalate and will become very obvious. What else does Pisces rule? It rules homeless people. Again, crisis in Europe, and it's again connected to refugees. I have nothing against refugees, but sometimes it seems like things are orchestrated as well. So there is something here that you can notice. So cultural identities are washed out, but maybe that's God's will eventually. The merging of all nations might take a few hundred years for the full adaptation, but there's always the first step towards that direction. And because also spiritual science says that in the sixth post-Atlantean age, which we're slowly entering towards, races will be eliminated. They will disappear. They've only existed since Atlantis. From the start of Atlantis, and in the sixth post-Atlantean age, they would merge over the next 2,000 years. So within 2,000 years, there'll be, like now we have big difference between skin color, whatever. Within 2,000 years, that will almost be gone. But anyway, the other thing that Pisces rules is homeless people. So again, something can happen that Saturn is any malpractices of government or malpractices of such people, or will come to the surface. Any kind of scandals or crisis can be there, and governments, not only governments, but people around, it will become very present, very obvious to people to take certain actions about that. Certain laws, or I don't know, has to be taken into account. Then Pisces rules the addicted, the sick, the poor, like all those people on the fringe, marginalized, all those people that cannot take care of themselves, all those people that are in kind of a helpless state, whether they put themselves there consciously or through ignorance. Also, that's why Pisces rules very old people and very little kids that can't take care of themselves. And there are other members of society, whether they're refugees, whether they're homeless, whether they're drug addicted or sick, that are in such stages as well. So again, any malpractices that have happened with children, for example, CPA, Child Protective Services, a lot of secrets about that can come to the surface. Malpractices or kind of ignorance, negligence, or on purpose making anything dodgy. Watch out for this over the next 4 months. And then Pisces, Saturn will go retrograde in Pisces again the next year and the year after that. So we have 3 years to see all of those social services that are supposed to take care of the poor being exposed for mistake that they've done, and maybe some harsher rules or consequences will come for that. Again, it's the homeless, it's the drug addicted. There might be some, escalation. And if you've seen videos, this new drug called Trank that's makes people like zombies in some of the big cities in Europe and the States, Seattle in particular, every corner I could see zombies. I was like, what is happening? And it's become scary. And now with Saturn in Pisces going retrograde, it will escalate. Steps will have to be taken. I don't know if it will be on the first Saturn retrograde, but over the next 3 years, this will be a big theme, and a crisis can appear, and it will force us collectively to pay attention to that. And of course, to put some restrictions or whatever it is, some regulations in regards to that. Then, of course, Pisces is the poor, the sick, so animal and the hospitals, the medical professions, animal practices over the last 30 years or whatever. A lot of truth and lies can come to the surface if anything like that has happened, obviously. And so watch out, the next 3 years is when those things, just like already it started, Saturn is not even retrograde, but during the retrograde period, it becomes even more obvious. It's becoming obvious that there will be many alternative medicine, and that officially now the government is saying, like ivermectin and whatever they worked, that they're starting to say that there's really serious aftermath for some people of the treatment that they were given. And even Pfizer published I don't know how many pages of side effects. So now it's coming to the surface with Saturn in Pisces, but when it goes retrograde, even more so. So consequences, maybe some regulations, maybe, I don't know, like the results of that. Unfortunately, it can also indicate the intensification of the results of if you've put certain poisons in your body, whether it's if you've been using addiction. So this is one of the times if you're abusing in some kind of substances, which is again Pisces, or if you're medications, even if it's prescribed medication, sleep medications, whatever it is, pain medication, anything that is a drug, legal or not legal, Saturn going retrograde, things can start becoming unbearable. It's in Pisces. It cannot carry on like that. So a lot of people will be time now to really dig deep and find extra resources when Saturn goes retrograde to quit, whether it's your mental health medication or some other more medications that poison the system, medications that make you addicted for life on them, or pain medications or drugs. So on the positive side. On the negative side, consequences of abuse of such substances will become very palpable. very noticeable with Saturn going retrograde in Pisces. Like if it's any kind of addiction, cigarettes, alcohol, whatever, it's like you can start seeing the physical results of those issues. Maybe, you know, whatever, you might start having difficulty breathing, or a lot more. People will notice that it's not sustainable. It's they cannot carry anymore. Their body starts breaking down, or whatever, your mind, mental health. So the good side of it is, the negative side is, yeah, seeing the results of this abuse of any kind of substances, medical, prescribed, or illegal. On the positive side is, though, actually finally taken into control. And for Saturn retrograde, because it's 3 times closer to Earth, allows you to have 3 times more self-control than normal, than when it's moving direct. So this is the good side of Saturn retrograde in Pisces, in particular, harness, take into control, regulate, or fully, Saturn represents the death with the sky, fully remove such unhealthy, self-sabotaging, any kind of vices. Pisces rules any vices and hidden behaviors and addictions we might have. It might be to porn, it might be to anything, whatever you want, like sweets. Now is the time. This summer, next year as well, when Saturn goes retrograde, it will work in your favor. It will give a lot more self-control in such behaviors. Also, there can be some crisis and escalation of problems about poverty. So Pisces also rules poverty, and important decisions to be taken about that. Spending, Pisces rules spending, and I don't know, is it government spendings or whatever, but there needs to be certain, a crisis can appear due to overspending, personal overspending or government overspending. It might be like financial difficulties or whatever, some kind of crisis that needs to be considered. And Saturn retrograde wants to replan, to strategize better, to have more control over the spending. So that can be a good time on a personal level as well, to take stock of your spending, even though Jupiter is in Taurus, which makes our fingers a bit like that. But at the same time, Saturn in Pisces asks us to put the brakes on any kind of spending, whether it's from the government, whether it's, and the consequences of a lot of spending will be seen in the lives of many now. If you had certain expense of spending without having proper control over it, and without having proper deliberate focus on it, you can see the consequences again that from that. So I said the medical services, if they've been malpractices and so on. The unemployed is also Pisces. Again, they can be escalating crisis of unemployment. When Saturn goes retrograde, it can become more palpable than other times. But any kind of malpractices and lies and mistakes from the past will become way more visible now, whether it's on a collective level, government level, on a personal level. That can be very liberating once the lies comes to the surface. So the self-deception, so even though it's a painful, a bit humiliating process for a moment, but it's amazing to discover what you've been self-deceiving yourself of, what you've been neglecting or ignorant about, that you see breaking down or having a problem. It can be extremely liberating, because you know what you work on, and you know where the issue is, and you know what to, you'll be freed from the heaviness of that. So also it can indicate revision of past mistakes and the need to start fixing, correcting, restructuring those areas of mistakes, illusions, negligence. These are all Piscean, Saturnian themes. Now, Pisces rules any kind of, Saturn rules any regulatory bodies. And Pisces is all those that, you know, like the WHO, the CDC, the FDA. Saturn in Pisces represents exactly such structures that the government controls Saturn, and Pisces that they're trying to take care of health, you know, of the sick, the poor. So also immigration services, unemployment services, the services for the homeless, the services, child protection services, social services of any sort. But big pharma as well is Pisces. So Saturn here can really hit on big pharma. Now it's pay time. And on all those other protection services. But we have a danger here because Saturn is the planet of control. Over the next 2.5 years, the WHO, the World Health Organization, you probably know this, is trying to accept already in a year from now that all 190 people that are members of countries will accept a law, which is Saturn, a rule, a law that will give them access and predominance over the constitution of countries if there is a pandemic. So there is a one world government. That what will happen with the World Health Organization. It takes over it takes priority over the constitution of other countries. And if you don't want to implement what they say, okay, so everyone should be locked down, or everyone should take this medicine. If you refuse, they send you troops from the world that to implement that. If you refuse with your country troops to do it, and the army, they'll send you troops to do it for you. So and so far no country has protested against it, so they're going to take it. And that's total control, Saturn, over through medical, through health, which is Pisces, through the health industry. So now when Saturn goes retrograde, there might be some delays with the fulfillment of this, or there might be people resisting over the next 4 or 5 months the signing of this treaties. The first step was signed already with absolutely no resistance to it. We have to be a bit careful, even if it happens, and very likely, because by the end of this Saturn in Pisces, it will join with Neptune in 2025, 26 in the first degrees of Aries, and they'll be very close. And that's a combination for pandemic, and this time more serious. I've told you in the video before again, and whether it's planned or not planned, I don't know, but it will be used. So they're pushing for that. So there is one world government at the end through an unelected, unelected body. So they say it's more coordinated, so we can have a better response. But once there is one world government, you have no voice. They tell you from above what is happening and what you're gonna do. And so anyway, but even if it happens, I want to give you peace of mind, because age of Aquarius, it's not gonna stay central government. Aquarius is decentralized power of sovereignty of each independent unit decides for itself, while collaborating with the others. So eventually, over the next 2,000 years, that's the structure we'll achieve. And I have strong hope that it's going to be within the next 20 years, 18 years, well, during the Saturn-Jupiter cycle in Aquarius that started, and Pluto in Aquarius, they'll reinforce those. It will happen, but for a little bit, we might be on the big kind of. Saturn in Pisces can introduce medical dictatorship as well. That's one of the dangers of it. So these regulatory bodies that take too much control, too much power. And the same thing for CPS services, child protective services, that they're given too much authority or too much power, or anything to do with social services and so on. But we can never be 100% sure how it goes. But I have a hope, because this time Saturn is going retrograde when it's sextile with Jupiter. So on a personal level, if anything is going wrong in June for you, starting to break down, or you're starting to see consequences or restrictions, or Saturn going retrograde can mean delays, things breaking down, not going well, problems that appear. At the same time, Jupiter is helping, and Jupiter makes sure that the truth is upheld, that moral virtues and qualities are upheld, and it makes sure that the final result can be very beneficial. So I want to tell you, even on a personal level, if something is happening that you feel it's restricting you, that you feel you're not only restricting you, but blocking you, making some big turnaround in a stressful way, remember Jupiter is all the time this month sextiling Saturn, promising that the Saturn retrograde will really have positive final results. And Jupiter is helping from Taurus. It might be, if in a sextile might be someone else that helps you. Sextile has the quality of Venus, relationship, or kind advice, or unexpected positive developments out of this. So Don't lose hope on the personal level. The Saturn retrogrades every year. Just this year, it retrogrades for the first time in Pisces. Remember, if you're Pisces, it affects you the strongest. If you're Aries, it's in your 12th house. Check out my June videos to see exactly. And what else is it? Pisces can indicate anything to do with dams, and Saturn is to block something, dams, water shortages possible, or water issues, dams breaking down. Many times when Saturn is in Pisces, people, they build huge dams and they've harnessed the water for energy and resources, so that can be one good thing. But with retrograde, if there is any problems in the structure of dams or any other water retaining bodies, this can be compromised, or it can come to be known. Any kind of problems with water, like poisoning of water or water shortages, Saturn is to have something less of something. Pisces is water. Water issues might be the problem as well, especially when Saturn is retrograde, is more intense. So watch out the water, municipal water, whatever as well. If you can take anything to purify the water. I know it's expensive buying water all the time, but we usually fill them for free that comes out from the earth. If you don't have anything like that, maybe filters. But again, I want to remind you that on a personal level, Pisces rules the water in our body. Pisces rules the feelings as well and the mental health. So Saturn there, if there are any issues with that, they'll come to the surface when Saturn starts going retrograde. Pisces rules the lymph. So it's important to do some lymph massages or jump so the lymph can be moving. Otherwise, the interstellar fluid gets stagnant when Saturn is in Pisces, which can lead to poisonings, to tumors that can link to any kind of weakening of the immune system because it's toxic interstellar, toxic and stagnant. The lymph flushes out the toxins. It's the liquids in the body. And to do it move, there are massages as well. There's special foods that move the lymph as well. Detoxes, very important. If you can do detox during the period when Saturn is going retrograde, you can get yourself healed from a lot of either even mental, even when the lymph is stagnant, which will be like that. Not only a lot of cancers can appear, but a lot of migraines, a lot of weakening of immune system, depressions, when the toxins are in your body, lethargy, depressed, can't get your head out of the, so again, detoxes. Not even if you're not someone who uses negative substances, you still need detoxes because they're kind of stuck now. And Pisces also rules as well the endocrine system, which is the hormones. With Saturn there, watch out for hormonal issues. This can be something that is of big importance now. But again, what will help a lot is detoxing, anything to do with the lymph. Of course, Pisces is the psychological and emotional well-being. Saturn retrograde there. If you've been neglecting your mental, psychological well-being, especially childhood issues, which Pisces rules that are buried memories under the surface of your subconscious or even past lifetimes, now can be a time to address them and work through them slowly. You're not going to be immediately freed from those heavy emotions. It might take the whole retrograde period. It's a slow process of integration, realization, accepting, releasing, and so on. But, I'm very grateful for Saturn being in Pisces because we've had Neptune in Pisces, which is its own sign, since, okay, I'm not going to show you this, since 2012. And Neptune kind of dissolves all boundaries, dissolves all consequences. You can get under the drops. Just the same way, there's been absolutely very few regulations for big pharma, for absolutely very few regulations or consequences for any misdeeds and misconducts of all those Piscean services that I told you about, refuges, whatever, and so on. And now Saturn comes to put order into those things, to make us aware that we need, this is a physical earth, and it needs physical boundaries on certain things. And also there was, since 2012, explosion of epidemics of addictions and drugs and so on. and spending, inflation, all of those things. Saturn comes to rein those things in, to put into order, to show the consequences, to regulate better, to streamline those. Pisces is also, when Neptune has been in Pisces, a lot of wonderful things have happened as well. Spiritualizing of the people, easier connection to invisible worlds, and so on. But at the same time, a lot of lies and illusions. Bubble is about to burst with Saturn going retrograde in Pisces. And over the next 2-3 years, you'll see so many lies come to the surface. And Saturn is going retrograde in the 7th degree of Pisces, which is a degree of Libra, according to the Nicola Stojanovic degree theory. So I believe that a lot of lies or deceptions or misdeeds or mistakes in connection to relationships, personal business with clients or with personal lovers, whatever, will come to the surface. So interpersonal relationships will have a lot of a big checkup, especially in regards to lies or illusions, self-illusions, or on purpose if you've been misled, will burst the fake bubbles of illusions, especially since any fake bubble since 2012. Ever since then, in the house that Saturn is transiting for you, you can feel it on a personal level, but also with other planets. And what are the planets that will get affected? So you can check on any kind of birth chart calculator. If you have any planets in the mutable signs, again, I repeat these, the Pisces will feel it the strongest, then Virgo will feel it the second strongest, and then Gemini and Sagittarius, they will receive a square from Saturn. They would feel it to, let's say, 50% strength, but still very strongly. And Saturn transit, so if you have anything, Sun, Moon, Ascendant, Venus, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, or Jupiter, I work with those planets mostly. The other planets with Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, they are generational, so everyone in your generation, if it's there in the first 10 degrees of the mutable signs, will feel it. But yeah, if you see anything in the first 10 degrees of mutable signs, and I told you again which they are, the most important is Pisces, then comes Virgo, Gemini, and Sagittarius. Anything in the first 0 till 10 degrees. This Saturn retrograde, you might not feel it immediately, but over the next 4 months till November, definitely you'd feel it. So if it's your sun in any of those degrees, this can be a reality check in regards to your career. If you're dissatisfied in the direction you're going, you'd become very present for you. That can be a time you quit a job, or maybe a boss or authority figure becomes intolerable, very demanding, hard on you. It can indicate problems with men that start appearing, especially if you've not been handling relationship with important men in your life. Is it a father, a boss, a husband? Saturn is also, the sun is your self-confidence. And it can be like a questioning and testing of how capable and how confident you are about something. Oftentimes it's a test period if you're really committed or dedicated to a certain direction. So things get delayed or obstacles are put in front of you to solve. Of course, the highest vibration of Saturn is very high moral standing. So you have to keep moral, you have to keep legal, you have to keep kind of the high vibration is as well a bit reserved. Don't lose your head, keep your cool, that's with Saturn. Be strategic, plan, make a new plan, reorganize things downstream. But it can also be a good time where you see any illusions and lies in regards to important men in your life, or if you've been misleading yourself about your career direction of your life. Also, if you're working on important project or career, if it's not the right career, Saturn going retrograde, squaring your sun or opposing or conjunction, you might realize it's not. But if it is the right, it's like a test. Are you committed? Change something. Fantastic time, for example, to streamline, automate a career, to focus on the priority of it, because there will be a lot more responsibility that Saturn gives you and duties, and you have to prioritize which is truly the important work to do. So many times people might even streamline the work or restructure it, reorganize it in some way. It depends what house the sun is in also. If it's your moon in the first 10 degrees of mutable signs, it's usually more connected to your personal life, that you need to restructure, reorganize something, some lies can be revealed there that can burst your bubble, and some truths can come to the surface. There can be some changes with place of living, restructuring, reorganizing, working on a building. That's a very good manifestation with Saturn affecting your moon. It can be like either relocating or doing some structural changes to the house, but also it can be some things in the family that come to the surface, extra responsibilities or duty as a parent or towards parents, or to property, real estate, some blockages, delays, also some more karmic relationships. And if the moon is the planet of relating to others, connecting on a deep level, whether it's romantically or whether it's with a child, doesn't matter, it's the planet of bonding. If there's been any kind of neglect there or things not done right, they'll come to the surface now. Sometimes people feel lonelier when the moon is affected by Saturn aspect, hard Saturn aspect. But they also question which are the important emotional bondings and relations to them. Sometimes it escalates problems with relationships with parents or within the family. Important decisions can be taken about family, home. For me, I had it last year. The opposition, it was my business actually that was affected because my moon rules the 6th house. So you can check as well what house the moon is in, what house it rules. And of course, is the health. The sun and the moon are often connected to the health. The immune system can be a little bit more strained. Just be a bit more careful of that. But the final results can be more organized family, more organized personal life after that, more serious attitude and approach to your emotional commitments as well. If it's your Mercury in the first 10 degrees of any of the mutable signs, Saturn squaring, conjunct, or opposing, it can indicate a period, especially during the retrograde period, of revising of certain information, going back to certain skills that you used to know before and having to use them, brush them up, or putting extra efforts to acquiring new skills. The retrograde period is when we put 3 times more effort. It might be, for example, my husband learned to do accounting during a year of Saturn squaring his Mercury. Not an easy thing. But with Mercury, Saturn, you're not afraid to take on difficult knowledge. You might be pushed into situations where you have to acquire extra skills or knowledge that feels a bit burdensome and daunting. But don't worry, Saturn will help you be meticulous, go through it, acquire those skills. It can be working with documents and papers and a lot of mental administrative work or work that requires mental concentration during this period, arranging papers, documents, or whatever that the travels might be delayed, use of devices and softwares might be more burdensome. Or for me, it was learning a skill that I didn't want to learn, but I was so grateful I learned, which was like editing, making videos, and so on. Overcoming certain fear in communications, restructuring your thoughts better, putting more order to your work as well. It can be in your work processes, in your mental processes. There might be you not just honing your communication abilities, but you removing certain people from your life, because Mercury is a social planet. I don't know who are they, family, friends, teammates, workmates, but questioning certain people, are they good for me? And if there was any lies or misdeeds there, they can come to the surface for you to address them now. And also Saturn Mercury connections make your mind more anchored, stable, more practical, dealing with practical matters. You can dive deep to get to the bottom of a lot of issues. Mercury is very investigatory planet. With Saturn there, you dig deep as well. And revision, it might be great to study something, learn something, and so on. Or I was working on my business. I was starting my business when Saturn opposed my Mercury, for example. It was a lot of mental hard work and overcoming fears in communication, which was like, I was afraid even to go to a shop and ask how much bread costs, let alone make a video. That was overcoming some of my biggest fears. With Saturn affecting my Mercury, So, the final result was great. It was painful otherwise in the process. If it's your Venus that Saturn will be aspecting in the first 10 degrees of mutable signs, this can be a test of a relationship or how you perceive yourself as lovable. Remember when Saturn squared my Venus last time, my hair burned and it fell off, and I just considered myself for 3 months so ugly. And I was like questioning my husband still loved me. And I was also, but it was emotionally tough period because I also thought like I was having suspicions and doubts about my relationship. Does my husband love me? Does he like someone else? And such kind of doubts. Sometimes they can be true, but if they've been someone or someone that's neglected you in a relationship, or someone that you've neglected or misused or in some way lied, or you've been lied to, those lies can come to the surface now. You can find out such things. Also, Venus, Saturn making hard aspects to Venus can have a very good effect on ability to control your appetite, to rein in some of the behaviors that are, let's say, bohemian, indulgent, pleasurable. So it's kind of a bit ascetic influence. It's dampening on the social life, on a person having fun, enjoying themselves, dating. It's kind of there are more blockages there, or because of too much work, or because of some other circumstances, or testing of a relationship. But otherwise, it's very good for if you want to say no to certain behaviors, decrease sugar food and such kind of indulgent behaviors. Sometimes in extreme cases, there can be some blockages if you've mishandled money and finances or spent too much. You can now have to tighten up the belt, or you might be trying to save money for something, again, more control of finances, resources. But ultimately, again, you can streamline your beauty. You can do some corrections and changes to your appearance and beauty and to your style, usually in a more mature way, in a more simplified but quality way as well. A lot of times people do corrective things with their appearance as well because they doubt their beauty, but it is what it is. Then, and the ultimate goal is also that Saturn can help you organize your finances better, or be more, in regards to your relationships, be more accountable, be more committed. And if you're in a good relationship, the relationship will just get committed to the next level further, whether it's a personal or business relationship. If it's not, usually Saturn retrograde can show you where all the problems in your relationships with your clients or business partners or personal partners or very close friends come from. If it's Mars that Saturn is aspecting, Mars in the first 10 degrees of any of the mutable signs, it can feel like a stop and start energy, like trying to drive with the pedals on the brake. I don't drive. I'm not trying to say it with your foot on the brake. It's kind of So you want to move ahead, which is what Mars does, but Saturn is like, slow down. Some of your project might be slowed down. Some of your movement, restriction of movement of some sort can be possible. Again, it's probably good for you to be a bit more cautious, to proceed with caution. But also I've seen people do feats of willpower, because Mars is willpower. Saturn makes you be more deliberate, and rethink, where do you put your energy? Are you wasting your life force? Are you wasting energy in efforts that are not going to give results? You can start questioning your actions during that time. And if you've had actions that are cruel or hurtful to others, you'd get what you deserve now. I'm sorry to say that, but if you are, there can be some, if you've been someone abusing your power in some way, now someone will come that you'll see the consequences for your actions. Or if you've been someone, because Mars is one of the planets of power, someone who's used their strength in ways that are unsavory. Again, you'll see the consequences of that. But on a positive level, this can make you be very, very, I've seen people like do incredible things when Saturn aspects Mars. And you can run a marathon, you can run a sprint. Mars likes to run a sprint. Now with Saturn aspecting your Mars, your actions are like a marathon. You do a little bit every day, but you're consistent, and you're like the hare and the tortoise. you're going to be successful like the tortoise. You're going to win the race like the tortoise. Every day a little bit, you'll get to the end. There might be some blockages or some kind of to your actions and what you're trying to do. Again, if it's the right direction, Saturn, you just have to persevere every day in a little bit by little bit. If it's not the right direction, you'll become very clear about that. And you might have to change how you act and what the goals are. There might be some problems with males, or of course, Mars can be muscles. I don't know what else. They can be usually with work, with projects that you are asked to proceed more slowly, more cautiously. Certain obstacles will be put on your way that you have to overcome. And usually a lot more, it's a great time to weightlifting. Mars is the muscle, Saturn is weights. If you can start some routine where you're weightlifting, that would be fantastic. Actually, my best friend just had Saturn square her Mars. And over those 3 months that Saturn squared it, she made the best body ever. She started lifted, exercising at home, because Saturn Mars combinations are great for that. You can persevere, do much longer than other times. And she just did the best body ever. And she said she's never felt happier. But her actions were blocked because she was out of work, but she used it in a useful way and to start working on some business as well. That she said it's a very slow process, but it's giving results gradually. Now, if you are Jupiter in the first 10 degrees of Gemini, Sagittarius, or especially Pisces or Virgo, Saturn will aspect your Jupiter. Sometimes people can feel a bit more negative, like, oh, they don't have luck during that time, that everything comes with an effort. And with every Saturn aspect, you can feel lower vibration a bit, that it's, oh, life is drudgery, it's hard. With Jupiter, though, Jupiter is your lifeline, connection to higher power, and you get grounded when Saturn touches it. You might feel a bit more like a wet blanket. You kind of tend to see the negative in things and what can go wrong. Believe me, I'm born with the conjunction. I know it pretty well. But at the same time, Saturn asks you, to reconsider your outlook, to remove those dreams and goals that are unrealistic. And which are unrealistic, they might be blocked and there might be obstacles there. But even if you're on the right path, Saturn is like a test, how committed you are. Sometimes person can have like a crisis of faith, because Jupiter rules faith when Saturn aspects it. So you need to question certain aspects of your life depending what house Jupiter rules or is in your horoscope. You might be dealing, and in particular with Jupiter, you can only know what exactly will happen if you know the house Jupiter is in. So it's a bit hard to speak about that. It's more like the psychological, how you feel, and you question your philosophy about life and your beliefs. And it's good when Saturn aspects Jupiter in a hard aspect, not to overextend yourself, not to overdo anything. And that's a great thing. If you've been overdoing anything, Saturn reins it back. Saturn allows, because Jupiter is this element of expansion, of doing too much. Well, Saturn can make you, if it aspects Jupiter, for example, make your business smaller, or focus your efforts to a smaller area rather than expanding. Or if you've been overspending or overeating, whatever, Jupiter can, like for me, Jupiter rules the second house. Every time Saturn touches it, I can control my appetite better, what I drink, what I eat, and my money better. And it can even limit the money sometimes if it rules that, because Jupiter is naturally wealth as well. Or restructure, help you restructure and organize. Jupiter can be higher education, and Saturn touching it can make you go deep into knowledge. Question your information, restructure, maybe change something about the way your education is going, higher education or whatever, or really learn something. I was like learning a lot when Saturn was making hard aspect to my Jupiter. And then Jupiter is children. There can be extra responsibilities with children for some of you and so on. With Saturn in the first 10 degrees of any of the mutable signs, you're at the pivotal point. Every 7 years, Saturn aspects itself. Transiting Saturn aspects natal Saturn. These are moments of maturation, next level. like at 7 years, 14 years, 21 years, 27, 28, 35, 36, and so on. Every 7 years, it's a new kind of chapter in life when the whole body, each cell, every organ renews itself. It's brand new within 7 years. So you can kind of have, it is testing when Saturn aspects itself, especially if you're having Saturn return, if you're 28, you know, and Saturn, you have Saturn in Pisces in the first 10 degrees, or if you have your second Saturn return. These are pivotal moments when people make, these are moments of maturing, becoming an adult. Oftentimes people take decisions if they've been married to get divorced, or if they're single to get married, or to start a business. They take some of the most important decisions in their life. As a mature person with responsibility, they leave behind the silliness, tomfoolery behind, and they're asked to be mature. And if you're a naturally mature person, that will be a great period for you. For me, it wasn't. I was a party girl till my Saturn return. All I did was like party, and it was like smashed me. But I started my business, crying every day. I don't want to do it. I can't do business. I can't do this. Oh, I can't. I don't want. No. But it lasted a year, and here I am. So I'm so grateful for Saturn. It smashed me emotionally, but it made me get up serious, become serious about life, take responsibility. So even if Saturn is just squaring on opposing, again, it's kind of a crossroad in life when Saturn is affecting itself. And it's you're asked to mature, you're asked to take down some old structures and start building some new structures in your life. Usually life in those periods takes a new direction in some way, new chapters. When it's Saturn return is the biggest new chapter, whether it's first or second. The other ones are smaller new chapters within the big one. And of course, it's to do with structures, it's to do with tearing down old blockages and anything that's limiting you, breaking it down, sometimes in a disruptive way, and rebuilding more stable foundations in some way. Oftentimes it's very physical, and oftentimes there's a lot more new responsibilities that appear during that time, or a lot of hard work that you have to do, where you really have to use those Saturn muscles, which are the power of no, and the power of persisting and trying over and over. So let's end this on a positive note. The Saturn retrograde will, it's 4 months. I believe a lot of lies and deceptions will be, will be revealed. Also in your personal lives, if you've been deceiving yourself or someone as well, or making mistakes or neglects, you'll see the results of that. But on a positive level, Saturn retrograde gives us 3 times more power to say no to any self-harming behaviors, self-sabotaging behaviors, any hidden vices, addictions, and gives us 3 times more power to be consistent, to persevere despite of the difficulties, to have this no power of Saturn. And it's sometimes the strongest and the most freedom people get is when they learn to say no, and when they learn to control themselves. And Saturn retrograde period gives us this ability to learn to control, put our back into it, try 3 times harder to cut off something from your life, or to build something new, to work extra hard on making it part of your everyday life, this new routines. So thank you so much. Hope that was helpful for you. Anyway, if you want to learn astrology with me, check out my every 3 weeks I recommend 2-3 courses that are discounted in a package for a different theme. And those themes, I also every month I do a video, and you can listen a video answering your questions on the courses, because I have over 200 courses, and I organize them in packages of 2-3. So if you want to learn with me, you receive a big discount. And then we have live Q&A questions on the material that you're learning for the next 4 or 5 months till October, till Saturn turns direct. So revision time. Thank you so much, guys.